Hi guys, good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Okay guys, I'm sorry. Can you hear
Okay.
me well?
Yes, miss.
Okay. Okay guys, so today we're going to continue working and practicing question 1 of the speaking section. We're going to continue seeing or practicing. I'll give you some feedback as we go. We're going to try to see as many different question types as we can. We're going to be looking at different topics. So let's see. You already know what to do for this question. Remember that you get the question on the screen. I will read it for you, or the narrator will read it when you guys are taking the test. Then you will be given 15 seconds to prepare your response, and you have 45 to speak to answer the question. Right? Do you guys have any questions before we start practicing today?
So today is practice task 1.
Exactly. Today we're going to be practicing task 1. Okay, so let's start with this question here. Okay, so the question says, state whether you agree or disagree with the following statement. Then explain your reasons using specific details in your explanation. Students should not be allowed to bring cell phones into the classroom. Now you guys will have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay. So, who wants to go first?
I can start.
Okay, that's great. Of course. Then you can go ahead now.
Okay, I am totally disagree with the state because the student can stay with your cell phone in classroom if they have rules. So it's important for the communication, stay with your cell phone. In these days or nowadays, the cell phone can help you a lot with emergencies. For example, when I was in a class a day, my mother called me and she needed me because she was sick and she needed help with the ride to the hospital.
Okay, great. Perfect. So in terms of content, your response is really good. You directly answered the question. You disagree. You had a great reason. Sometimes there's an emergency, students need to have their cell phones, and you had a great example as well about an emergency that you had and how using or bringing a cell phone into the classroom helped you. So I wouldn't change anything in that sense. Maybe some comments. First of all, carefully your introduction with the grammar. Remember, you can never say I am totally agree or disagree. right? You have to say, I totally agree or I totally disagree without the verb to be. So, and always try to repeat a little bit of the statement. So tell me, I totally disagree that students should not be allowed to bring cell phones. You know, you could just leave it there. I totally disagree that students should not be allowed to bring cell phones. And then you go
Okay.
to your direct. Only that, and also careful with the tenses, the verb tenses in your exam. So your mom called you and she needed you or she needed help to get to the hospital, right? Don't forget those conjugations in the past. She needed, she called. Okay. Let's do another one. Our next question here says, do you agree with the following statement? It is important to learn about other cultures. Use details and examples to explain your opinion. You can please start preparing your response now. Okay. So please, Luis, you can start speaking now.
Yeah, I strongly agree. We we learn people learn about other cultures because since it's important to know about the traditions, the foods, and for instance, would be the Hindu culture. It's very interesting about the tradition and these foods. For me, it's exotic, and those are the main reasons for. I think it's important to learn about other cultures.
Okay, okay. So it was good, Luis, well done. Maybe I would say that it needed a little bit more depth. It needed more depth, más profundidad, right? You said that you agree that it's important to learn about other cultures, but I don't think you actually told me why. You know, you said that it's important to know about the traditions, that it's interesting, but you didn't really get to the why. So try to always look for maybe more objective reasons. For example, you could say it's important to learn about other cultures in order to uh, maybe in order to uh, respect them if you travel, right? In order not to disrespect their traditions, maybe you could say. Or I don't know, like maybe you could talk about learning other cultures opens your mind, let's say, or it opens new doors for you, or things like that. All right, so maybe I don't know. Can you guys think of other reasons, maybe? Learning about other cultures?
The religion.
Religion, okay. So maybe, okay, this is simple ways. Let's say benefits. You know, if you search for, I don't know why I made, let's say benefits.
Communication also can be.
Communication, yes, so that you can better communicate with people. Okay. More meaningful interactions with those around you, building respect, empathy. Okay. So those would be maybe some. So that's what I would do. I know that sometimes you get these questions, like there was one that was like, do you think that it's important to know about art? It's really hard to answer those questions, but as you go and as you practice, you're going to be able to pick up a few ideas. So impacting the thinking process, so open up your mind. Um, social communication skills, maybe this is what Erasmo was saying. Okay. Only that, maybe just to add a little bit more depth, and be a little bit more specific as well with your examples, right? You were talking about Indian traditions, so maybe you could mention a few or make up a few. And also in your introduction, don't forget, I strongly agree that instead of we, right? I strongly agree that it's important to learn about other cultures. Okay?
Miss.
Okay, let's do another one. All right. The one we have here says more and more people are buying items on the internet and from magazines or catalogs. Other people prefer shopping in a store. Which do you prefer? Explain why. Now you guys will have 15 seconds to prepare. Okay, so please, Erasmo, you can start speaking now.
Okay, I totally prefer shopping in internet. Since internet is fast than shopping in a store or for magazine or catalog. For instance, you can look for products quickly. For example, in my case, I always use Amazon to buy products. You can arrange your shipment, your time, you can choose different things.
Okay, great, Erasmo, well done. Really great response. So nice introduction, directly answering the question. I totally prefer buying items or buying products on the internet. Your reason was also awesome. Don't forget the grammar though, because buying items through the internet is faster, right? Instead of just fast, it's faster than shopping in a store. You had a great example as well, and I like that you had good vocabulary, like arranging shipment. That's a really good expression to use here. You gave specific details on Amazon. Maybe you could have mentioned what products you buy from there, but I wouldn't really change anything else. Well done, great response, Erasmus.
Thank
And
you.
great reason, faster. So yes, usually when talking about technology, the internet, social media, the reasons that you can always use are it's faster, it's easier, more convenient, you have more options maybe, but I think saving time is probably the number one. Great. Now here we have, some people prefer to learn about current events from watching television news programs. Others prefer to read about current events in the newspaper or on the internet. Which do you think is better, watching the news or reading the news? Explain why. You will now have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay, so Luis, please, you can start speaking now.
Well, I totally prefer to see what we to see watch to see the events on television because since the feelings and emotion when you are watching the game it's better. For instance, I like to watch fights of UFC and it's emotionating because when you know about the result,
Okay, good. Can you repeat what was your example, please? You like to watch?
UFC Ultimate Fighting Championship.
Okay. That's a TV news program?
It's a championship, yes.
I'm sorry, it's a?
It's a championship.
Okay, okay, but they are talking about news, right? TV news. Las noticias.
Ah, entendí. Ver resultados como de partidos.
Ah, okay, 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 okay. No, it's about the news. So yes, careful when reading the question. They say learn about current events, eventos actuales from watching television news. So the news, las noticias in TV, or what reading about them in the newspaper or the internet, right? So careful there. It wasn't bad though. I mean, I think you could use the same reason. No problem. You could say, I prefer watching the news since it's more visual and you get to maybe experience the news better. But I would maybe go for a more objective reason, right? So if you say that you prefer watching the news, maybe you can say that while watching the news you can do, or while watching or seeing the news you can do other things, right? Maybe you can watch the news in the morning when you're having breakfast, making breakfast. Maybe that would be one reason. I don't know. Maybe reading about events. So reading the news could be one reason why people would prefer to read the news, maybe because the news, when you watch them, are too graphic. That would be another reason if you went for the other option. But most importantly, be careful when you're reading the question, right? Make sure that you get it right. And also, you need to go faster with the introduction. You're taking about 15 seconds in your intro, and it should be at most 8 seconds. Remember that it's the quickest part. You read the question, which do you think is better? And you start there. I totally think it's better to watch the news, right? You just need to see what you have in the question and then answer it directly. I totally think it's better to watch the news, or I totally think that watching the news is better, right? Or reading the news, whichever you. Okay. Okay, let's do another one. Okay, our question here says, some people enjoy spending their free time alone in activities such as reading, thinking, or writing. Others enjoy spending their free time in shared activities with other people. Which do you prefer and why? Now you guys will have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay, so Erasmo, please, you can start speaking now.
I totally prefer enjoy spending my free time with people since it's more funny. You can share your time with experts, for example. Most people like to go to play some sports. In my case, I like to go with my friends to play pickleball, or also I can go with my friends to play soccer. And I think it's better to share with my time with friends.
Okay, good. So yes, it's more fun, right? Instead of funny. You say funny when you talk about a person, and you say fun when you talk about an activity or something. So great.
Okay.
Also careful in your introduction. I totally prefer spending my time. You don't have to mention the word enjoy anymore because it's only part of the question, right? Algunas personas les gusta pasar su tiempo. So you need to say, I prefer to spend my time. Yo prefiero pasar mi tiempo. ¿No? I prefer spending my free time in shared activities. Okay. Let's do one that's a little bit more difficult. It says, explain whether you agree or disagree with the following statement. All countries, including the US, Russia, and China, should not be allowed to possess nuclear weapons. Then give specific details in your argument. Now you guys will have 15 seconds to prepare. Okay. So, Luis, please. You can start.
I strongly agree. That should not be, the country should not be allowed to possess nuclear weapons, since it's dangerous to give that level of power to these countries. For instance, the best example could be the Russia. Um,
Okay, all right. So what was your reason?
no me acuerdo cómo decir confrontación.
Confrontation, right? But maybe you mean conflict.
Yes,
So what was your reason?
the Russia conflict with Ukraine.
Okay, but that's an example, right? That's not a reason. That's your example.
No, the reason could be it's dangerous to give to the country that level of power.
Very good. So in that case, it's great. So yes, I would say that's pretty good. Your introduction this time was great, right on point. I strongly agree with that. So now your grammar was good. Your reason that is good. It's dangerous to give countries this level of power. And it was a great example. Maybe what I would say, if you can please give me a second. I'm going. Okay, sorry. What I was telling you is maybe I will try to draw the connection a little bit more between the reason and the example, right? So you said a great example of this is the recent conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Great, but try to make sure that you say how that is related to the question, right, about nuclear weapons. So you can say a great example of that is a conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and how Russia used their nuclear weapons on Ukraine, which caused, I don't know, a huge amount of human losses, let's say, right? So with that, I am connecting the example back to the topic, right, of nuclear weapons. So even if it's a little bit obvious, you try to say it. How does this example of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine is related to nuclear weapons and to the danger that they mean? Okay, and if you have extra time, don't forget a short conclusion would be nice so that you feel that time that you have left. But it was good. It was a great response to a difficult question. Okay, guys, do you have any questions so far? Okay, let's do another one. The question here says, instead of phoning friends and family, many people prefer to communicate by sending text messages. Do you think that it is a good idea to use texting as a primary means of communication? Support your points with specific examples and details. Now you guys will have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay, so Erasmo, please, you may start speaking now.
Okay, I think it is not a good idea to use texting as primary means of communication, since it's a not good way to express or communicate. For instance, you can call and spread in a better way. For example, when I trying to text a message, sometimes the people that receive the message doesn't understand what I trying to say. That's the reason why I prefer to call and explain in a better way.
Okay, sometimes when you're sending a text message, the people that are getting the message don't, right? The people is plural, they don't. But try not to say the people. Sometimes when I'm trying to send a message to someone, they don't get the correct message, right? They can maybe misinterpret what you're saying.
Okay.
Okay, good, well done. To be honest, I think what you were missing is a strong reason in the beginning. What you mentioned as your example should have actually been your reason. Because initially you said, I don't think that it's a good idea to use texting because you said it's a not good way to express yourself, right? To communicate. And then you say, because it's better to call. But at the end of the day, you didn't tell me why until the end. So prepare your reason during your 15 seconds, and that should have been your reason, right? Instead of your example. I don't think that using texting is a good idea, since sometimes people can misinterpret when reading text messages. For example, and then you'll be a little bit more specific, right? You need to be a little bit more specific. For example, the other day I was texting my mom, or I was texting a coworker about a problem that I have at work, and he interpreted my text as I was mad at him when I actually was. So try to prepare your reason during your 15 seconds so that you can go directly to it as soon as you start speaking.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's do another one. The question here says, some people like to have their cell or mobile phone with them at all times. Other people prefer not to bring their cell or mobile phone with them everywhere they go, or they choose not to own one at all. Which do you prefer? Now you guys will have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay, Luis, so please, you can start speaking now.
I totally prefer to bring this cell phone with me everywhere I go. Since I have the facility to search or look video or any kind of tool. For instance, doing my homework, I can look explanation.
Okay. Great response. Try not to over-explain your reason. Maybe that's what I would say. How could you express your reason maybe a little bit shorter? Because you say you can search for a video, you can look up a definition, an explanation. So how can you summarize your reason in, let's say, one phrase?
It's easier to I don't know.
Maybe you could say it's easier to get information, to acquire information.
Yes.
So that way, try to always shorten it, write it down because maybe you will need it for another question. And in that case, you say, I totally prefer to bring my cell phone everywhere I go, since that way I can access information quicker and more easily, right? And then you give your example. And when you give your example, I like what you were doing, right? For example, if you are in a class and you need to look up for something, then you can do it right away. So use that, but be a little bit more specific, right? So for example, when I go to university, my university classes, sometimes the professor asks questions or I need to search for specific information and I can do that in seconds. I don't have to go home or go to the library or like borrow a computer. Okay. So summarize your reasons a little bit more and be a little bit more specific with your example.
Miss,
Yes, Erasmo?
oh, I had to go out of the meeting because I had something to go
Okay.
another place.
Okay, yes, Erasmo, don't worry about it. Thanks for letting me know. I will see you tomorrow then.
Thank you, Miss. I'm sorry.
I know, don't worry. Okay. Is that okay so far? Any questions?
No, miss.
Okay. Let's do another one. Okay. So the question here says, do you agree or disagree with the following statement? To protect the health of young children, advertisements for candy and junk food should not be shown on television. Use specific reasons and details in your response. Now you will have 15 seconds to prepare. Okay. So please, you can start speaking now.
I strongly disagree with the advertisements for candy and junk food should not be shown on the television because since I think it's not. I don't know.
Okay. Come on, think about some reasons. What could you say?
If I said it was agree, I think it could be more easy because I think I said it's not beneficial to kids to eat candy and junk food.
Okay. Yes. So yeah, you could just focus um on how like candy and junk food damages children's health, right? You could say because this type of food is so damaging for children's health, and then you can explore that, right? You could maybe give an example of how it was when you were a child. Maybe you could say when I was a child, we didn't have these type of advertisements, and I remember being healthier than kids nowadays, let's say. So yes, you could do that. You could also say that children are easily influenced. So whatever they see, they want. Maybe so advertisements for children in general, maybe they should not be shown. So yes, just for some reasons you could use. Or you could, if you are against and you say that you disagree, you could say that it's up to their parents to control what they watch and what they see and to educate their children and to teach them what's wrong and what's right? Or you could say that children can eat this food without eating too much, and those are some ideas. Not bad though. Now our question here says, some people like to study in public places where there are other people around. Others prefer to study in places where there are few or no people around. Which kind of place do you prefer? Explain why. Now you'll have 15 seconds to prepare. Okay, so please, you can start speaking now.
I totally prefer to study with no people around, since are many distractions like dog people talking or any of these noises. And for instance, mm, I prefer to study in my home at night because it's no noises in my room. It's more beneficial to me to understand everything. And those are the main reasons. So I prefer.
Okay, good, great. Great introduction, great reason. Places where no people around are less noisy. You could always say they're more quiet and there are fewer distractions, right? You had a great example, so you prefer to study at home, remember, instead of in my home, at home at night, because you can concentrate better, you can learn more. Okay, good. So yes, I think it was really good. I wouldn't really change anything. You can always contrast. You could always say, whenever I try to study in a coffee shop, for example, or even in the library, and you can elaborate on that idea as well. Sometimes going, like if you say that you prefer to study in places with no people around, maybe a better way to give an example would be to talk about how when you study in a place, in a public place, you get distracted, right? To show that contrast. But it's just an option. I think it was good. Okay. Now our next question here says, do you agree or disagree with the following statement? Parents should be involved in the process of helping their children to choose a career. Use specific examples and details to support your opinion. You will now have 15 seconds to prepare. All right? So please start speaking now.
I strongly agree that the parents should be not involved in the process of helping their children to choose a career, since it's confusing to
Okay, so what happened here? What do you think happened? It's confusing.
I think it could be better if I say I agree, because sometimes it's confusing to choose the career.
Okay.
Not you don't have the experience.
Yeah, I guess that's a good idea. So don't forget to make your introduction shorter. You don't necessarily have to repeat everything. In this case, this is a very long statement. So you could just say, I totally agree that parents should help their children choose a career, right? Instead of should be involved in the process of. So, or I totally think that parents should help their children. And you can even stay there. And your reason, yes, don't forget, because it can be confusing for children when they have too many options. And then you talk about yourself, right? Don't forget your example either. For example, when I was choosing my major, I didn't know if I wanted to be an architect or a software engineer. My parents helped me in the process and I made the right choice. Let's say. Or if you say that you don't agree, you could say that maybe parents sometimes, or maybe parents force their children to choose something that they don't want to do, right? And they end up being unhappy. And you could do the same. You could say, for example, when I was choosing my major, my parents almost forced me to go for architecture when I actually wanted to be a software engineer. And now I'm not happy with my career. But don't forget those details. Okay.
Okay.
Now here we have some university students choose to take difficult classes even if they know that they might not get a good grade in the class. Other students prefer to take easier classes in which they know that they will get a good grade. Which do you prefer? You will now have 15 seconds to prepare your response. Okay, so please you can start speaking now.
Uh, I totally prefer to take a difficult classes since in these classes you know more things or you have more more difficult to
Okay. So maybe you could say in these classes you challenge yourself. Maybe that you feel more motivated or more engaged in the class. When you take a class that challenges you feel more engaged, more interested. Maybe it's more interesting. You feel more motivated to go to learn. So try to always keep it short, even if what you're saying feels like it's not very good or not what you wanted to say, keep it short. So for example, in your case, you said, I prefer taking more difficult classes since you can learn different things. Even if you said that, stop there and go with the example. You could say, for example, right now I'm taking astronomy, which is a very difficult class in my university. And then you start talking about what you're learning. Um, and in that way, you're going to explain more with the example. But don't forget to get to the example. You're forgetting about your examples. Okay? Okay. Let's do another one. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? Children should receive money for doing household tasks such as cleaning. Use specific examples and details to support your opinion. Now you will have 15 seconds to prepare. Okay? So please, you can start speaking now.
I strongly agree to children should receive money for doing housework tasks such as cleaning, since eh, I think it's motivating to do these things. For instance, when I was young, my parents gave me money for doing the household, like clean the dishes, wash the dishes, or wash the garden.
Okay, good. Like doing the dishes or doing the garden, right? Or cleaning the garden. Okay, good. Really well done. So great reason in this case, and I think now you went directly to the example. It was a lot better, I would say. So it keeps them motivated, and you had a great example as well. Don't forget to connect, right? So for example, when I was a kid, my parents used to give me money for cleaning the garden or doing the dishes every week. And I felt really motivated and happy and excited while doing these tasks, right? So well, that addition to I felt motivated is related to your reason, right? So only that I would honestly add and carefully in your introduction. Remember that it's not agreed to. You just need to say agreed that. I totally agree that children should receive money for household tasks. You don't have to give the examples such as cleaning, right? I totally agree that children should receive money for doing household tasks. Okay, but I think it was a lot better. Well done. Okay. Now, do you think that eating healthy food is easier or more difficult today than it was 40 or 50 years ago? Use examples and details to support your answer. You will now have 15 seconds to prepare. Okay, so please, you can start speaking now.
I actually think it's easier eating healthy food today than it was 14 or 50 years ago, since uh, you know more about you have more information about foods and ingredients. For instance, all all food has the ingredients they are made like
Okay, good. Like, what example could you give of a food item that has its tag with the ingredients in there?
sorry.
Oh, you were saying like, maybe could you be a little bit more specific? You were saying all food, right? Every food item. Maybe be a bit more specific, right? Everything else was good. I totally think that eating healthy food is easier now since you have access to more information about what the food is made of. For example, I would maybe talk about one specific food item. You're saying that everything has its ingredients. So maybe say, for example, if you go to the grocery store and you buy a yogurt, you can see the tag with its ingredients specifying what it's made of, right? And you can decide if you want to eat it or if you want to have it or not. So be a bit more specific, but I think it was a great idea for your reason and example. Okay. Now our next one here says, Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? Private cars should not be allowed in the city centers of large cities. Use details and examples to explain your opinion. You will now have 15 seconds to prepare. Okay, so please you can start speaking now.
I strongly agree that the private cars should not be allowed in the city centers of large cities, since it's more chaotic and more, it would be more, it has more traffic. For instance, in my city, it has more traffic.
Okay, elaborate more. What city is that, right? Tell me, for example, I live in Cochabamba and there's a lot of traffic where I live. So you're saying there's traffic. Tell me, explain more. So every day that when I go to work, it takes me about 30 minutes, even though it's 3 kilometers that I have to go. Right? So be more specific. What city, how much traffic, how do you see that? But I think it's a good reason. So it would be less chaotic. Large cities would be less chaotic. There will be less traffic. But don't forget your example, right? Be specific. What city? How many cars? Maybe you could say, for example, where I live in Cochabamba, there's around, I don't know, 9,000 cars every day only in the city center of Cochabamba. So just don't forget the details in your examples. Okay. Okay, let's try another one. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? A university's academic reputation is the most important thing a student should consider in deciding which university to attend. Use examples and details to support your opinion. You will now have 15 seconds to prepare. Okay, please, you can start speaking now.
I strongly agree that the university's academic reputation is the most important thing students should consider. Since
Yes. I mean, academic reputation of the university, how does that benefit students?
relation with others could be
Like knowing, like by meeting other people, you mean? Network.
networking. Yes.
Okay, yes, you could talk about networking. Maybe you could also say that employers or companies consider largely the academic reputation of the universities that their employees went to. right? So maybe you could say, I do agree that a university's academic reputation is the most important thing, since that's what most employers are looking for, right? By going to a university with a good academic reputation, the students increase their chances of getting good positions, or they have better opportunities, job opportunities, let's say. Then you say, for example, I went to San Simon University in Cochabamba, which is highly known for its academic reputation. And as soon as I graduated, I started receiving thousands of job offers, let's say, or I received a really good job offer, which is where I'm working right now. Right? So some ideas for this one. Or if you say that it's not important, you can say, no, I think that, and then you can talk about something else. I think that what's most important is to consider the the tuition cost of the university, because university is very expensive, right? So some ideas. Prepare though. Read about these topics, and that's gonna help you come up with more ideas. So is that okay? Do you have any questions about what we did today?
No, miss.
Okay. Then please don't forget today's daily survey, and I will be seeing you tomorrow in class.
I miss.
Bye bye.